This young man was hanged in a village called Bridge in County Antrim for his part in an uprising in 1798. His name was Roddy McCorley.
In February 1800, a young man was brought to the Bridge of Toom in County Antrim. His name was Roddy McCorley. He was sentenced to death by hanging, but the punishment didn't stop when he was dead. The British authorities wanted to send a message. They denied him a coffin. They denied him a spot in the churchyard. Instead, they dug a hole in the middle of the road, right beneath the shadows of the gallows, and they buried him there. For the next 50 years, the world moved on. Carts rolled over the earth. Horses trampled the ground. Thousands of travellers walked across the bridge, never realising they were stepping on the body of a man who had fought for Ireland. He was put there so he would be forgotten. But in 1852, workmen arrived to repair the foundations of the bridge. As they dug through the hard-packed earth of the road, their shovels hit something. They cleared away the dirt and found a skeleton. A local man, a relative of the McCorley family, was called to the scene. He confirmed what the older locals had whispered for decades. This was Roddy McCorley. His bones were finally moved to a quiet churchyard in Dunedin, giving him the peace he was denied for half a century. But the fact remains, for 50 years, the hero of one of our most famous songs was lying in the dirt beneath a busy road. To understand why he was put there and why he was so hated by the authorities, we have to look at the life he actually led. A soldier or an outlaw? Let's find out. The figure of Roddy McCorley stands at the crossroads of Irish history and Irish folklore. To the casual listener, he is the subject of a rousing ballad, a marching song that tells the tragic story of a young man dying for his country.
Oh, see the fleet-foot hosts of men who speed with faces wan.
To the historian, he's a more complex, shadowy figure, a rank-and-file rebel turned outlaw whose actual life has been obscured by the very song that made him famous. To understand why a young miller's son would end up on the gallows, we must first understand the world that created him. Roddy McCorley didn't act in a vacuum. He was a product of the year 1798, a year that remains a scar on the Irish psyche. In the late 1700s, Ireland was a kingdom in name only. It was controlled by the British Crown through a parliament in Dublin that represented only a small fraction of the population. The penal laws as well, though relaxing slightly, still discriminated heavily against Catholics and Presbyterians. The Society of United Irishmen was born in Belfast in 1791. Its founders were mostly Presbyterians, dissenters who were locked out of power just like their Catholic neighbours. Their vision was radical at the time. They wanted to break the connection with England. They wanted an independent republic. Most importantly, they wanted to unite Protestant, Catholic and dissenter under the common name of Irishmen. County Antrim, where Roddy lived, was the heartland of this movement. It was a place of radical ideas. The American Revolution had inspired the Presbyterians of the North. They saw the British Crown as a tyrant. When the French Revolution erupted in 1789, it poured fuel on the fire. The United Irishmen began to organise a military structure. They appointed officers, they gathered weapons, they prepared for war. Roddy McCorley was born in the parish of Dunedin, near Bridge. Sorry to interrupt the video, it's editor Ronan here. I just want to show you a mistake that I made, just to show how sometimes it can be hard to find verified information online and mistakes can easily be made. But in trying to find, maybe a painting or something of Roddy McCorley, this image kept coming up. I even downloaded it as roddymccorley.jpg, and it's on several websites, but that's actually Henry Joy McCracken. I wasn't familiar with Henry Joy or the Roddy McCorley story really before researching all of this. I nearly put his picture up as Roddy McCorley, and sure, that would have been wrong, wouldn't it? So there's lots of websites out there that actually show this is Roddy McCorley, but it's actually Henry Joy McCracken, as you probably saw from earlier on the video, just about here. I just dragged that down a little bit there so you can see it's Wolfe Tone and Henry Joy McCracken. It's the same person. He's got a different haircut. His sideburns are a little bit longer. Yeah, every time you search Roddy McCorley or Henry Joy McCracken, it comes up with the same picture. So there isn't really a picture of him, understandably enough, as you'll learn a little bit more later in the video as to why that is. But anyway, sorry for interrupting the video. Let's get right back into it. He was the son of a miller, and this is a significant detail. Millers were tradesmen. They were not the poorest of the peasantry. They had a standing in the community. However, the McCorley family suffered a devastating blow before the rebellion even began. Roddy's father was executed for stealing sheep. Around this time, theft of livestock was a capital offence. But in the charged political atmosphere of Antrim, the family believed this was not simple justice. They believed it was a political hit. They claimed that the father was targeted because he was a troublemaker or an agitator, and the sheep-stealing charge was cursed perjury used to silence him. Following the execution, the family was evicted from their home. This is the crucial psychological context for Roddy McCorley. When he took up the pike in 1798, he was not just fighting for an abstract republic. He was fighting a government that had hanged his father and thrown his mother onto the roadside. His motivation was personal. There is a persistent debate about Roddy's religion. The song treats him as a generic Irish martyr, which in the 20th century usually implies Catholicism. Some historical sources suggest he might have been Presbyterian. The United Irishmen in Antrim were overwhelmingly Presbyterian. It is more likely that Roddy was a Catholic who was part of the Defenders. The Defenders were a Catholic agrarian secret society that allied with the United Irishmen. He was eventually buried in the graveyard of the Doneen Church of Ireland. But this doesn't prove that he was Protestant either, as this was the only consecrated ground available for local burials. However, the ambiguity of all of this adds to his mystique. The rebellion in County Antrim was short, bloody and chaotic. Understanding the specific events of June 1798 helps us confirm or debunk the claims made in the song. The rebellion began in the south of Ireland in May 1798. The north was slower to rise. The leadership in Belfast hesitated, but finally, Henry Joy McCracken, a charismatic leader from a wealthy Belfast family, took command. He issued the order for the men of Antrim to rise on June 7th, 1798. Roddy McCorley would have been one of those thousands who answered the call. The song claims he led a stalwart band, leading his local Doneen neighbours.
Behind him marched in grim array a stalwart earnest band. For Antrim town, he led them to the fray.
The rebels converged on Antrim town. Their weapon of choice was the pike. The rebels tried to storm the town. They fought with incredible bravery. They charged the British artillery, trying to capture the guns. The arrival of British reinforcements and the terrifying power of grape shot, these were canister rounds fired from cannons, it broke the rebel lines. The rebel army disintegrated. While the main battle raged in Antrim, other skirmishes occurred. Local folklore often places Roddy at the fight in Randallstown or at the attack on the bridge at Tuam. The Doneen men were ordered to destroy the bridge at Tuam to stop British reinforcements crossing the River Bann. It's highly probable that Roddy was involved in this specific action. This connects him directly to the bridge where he would later die. The song says that he goes to die on the bridge, and history suggests that he fought to destroy that very bridge 2 years earlier. The song jumps from the rebellion directly to the execution. It skips the 2 years in between, and history tells us that Roddy didn't die in 1798. He survived and became an outlaw. After the defeat at Antrim, the government offered an amnesty. If a rebel surrendered his pike and swore an oath of allegiance, he could go home. Most men did take this deal. They had families to feed, but some men were excluded from the amnesty. People like leaders or high-ranking officers, deserters, these are men who may have served in British militia and switched sides, and murderers as well, men accused of specific killings during the risings. Thomas Archer was a former militia man who had deserted to the rebels. He couldn't surrender. He would be shot for treason, so he took to the woods. He gathered a group of hardcore rebels around him. These were men who had absolutely nothing to lose. Roddy McCorley joined this gang. This transforms Roddy's story. He was not just a patriot martyr, he was a rapparee, a guerrilla fighter living off the land. The Archer gang operated in the bogs and forests of South Antrim. They were a terrifying force. They attacked the homes of loyalists and yeomanry officers. They stole money, arms and food. The authorities viewed them as common bandits. Was their motivation crime or politics? It was likely both. They needed to steal to survive. But they chose targets who were enemies of the rebellion. To the British, they were nefarious wretches. To the local peasantries, they were heroes continuing the fight. For nearly 2 years, late 1798 to the early 800, Roddy lived on the run. They hid in the Duneen bogs along the banks of the River Bann. And this is difficult terrain. It's wet, it's marshy, hard for regular soldiers to traverse. They relied on the locals for food and shelter. Without the silence of the community, they would have been caught in a week. The end of the Archer gang came not through military defeat, but through betrayal. The British authorities, they knew that they couldn't hunt down Archer and McCorley in the bogs, so they used money. They offered huge rewards for information. In a starving, war-torn country, money was a powerful weapon. Local folklore is very specific about who betrayed Roddy. The names are Duffin and Mackerlane. Duffin is often described as a neighbour or a friend or even a fellow rebel who turned coat. The song implies a Judas-like treachery, but the reality was likely a mix of greed and exhaustion. By 1800, the community was just exhausted, tired. The gang's presence brought soldiers and searches. The community support mentioned earlier was just fading. Duffin may have betrayed Roddy to restore peace to the parish, or simply for the British gold. Roddy was hiding in a specific location when he was taken. Several sources mention he was hiding in a cot on the banks of the River Bann. A cot in this case is a small, flat-bottomed boat used for fishing or transport. It would have been pulled into the reeds or turned over to provide a makeshift shelter. Duffin led the soldiers to the spot, and Roddy was taken by surprise. There is no record of a shootout. He was likely asleep or just overpowered before he could reach any of his weapons. This quiet capture contrasts with the violent life that he had led. The execution of Roddy McCorley is the climax of the story. It is the moment where the man becomes the myth. We must separate the factual timeline from the poetic one. Roddy was taken to Ballymena, a major market town. He was not tried by a jury of his peers. He was tried by a court-martial. He was charged with rebellion and with the robberies committed by the Archer gang and found guilty, where he was then sentenced to death by hanging on Friday, the 28th of February, 1800. The Belfast Newsletter, which was a pro-government newspaper, reported the trial. It listed Roddy alongside other gang members, names like Stewart, Dunn and Ryan. It described them as nefarious wretches who have kept this neighbourhood in the greatest misery. This proves that, to the authorities, he was a criminal and not a soldier. One of the most persistent beliefs is that Roddy was executed on Good Friday. A tombstone erected years later famously bore the inscription, "Died on Good Friday 1799, but contemporary records, the Belfast Newsletter, confirm that he was executed on February 28, 1800. February 28 was indeed a Friday. However, Good Friday in 1800 fell in April. The year on the tombstone, 1799, was also wrong. Why the differences though? The Good Friday connection is a powerful narrative device. You could even argue that it links Roddy McCorley with Jesus Christ. It frames his execution as a holy sacrifice for the redemption of Ireland. The myth overwrote the facts because it felt more true to the people's emotions. The court ordered that Roddy be executed at Toombridge, not Ballymena. Toom was his home. It was the centre of his crimes. Hanging him there was a specific message of terror to his family and neighbours. He was marched under heavy guard from Ballymena to Toom, in and around 10 to 12 miles. This is the narrow street that he steps up in the song.
Up the narrow street he stepped, smiling, proud and young.
The song says that he was smiling, proud and young, and even the hostile newspaper reports admitted that the executed men often died with fortitude. In the culture of 1798, dying game, or dying bravely, was the final act of defiance a rebel could perform. The gallows were erected at the end of the bridge over the River Bann. He was hanged by the neck until dead. The British authorities denied him a proper burial. He was buried under the gallows, literally in the roadway. This was the ultimate insult. Travellers would walk and carts would roll over his body. It was an attempt to erase his memory and prevent his grave from becoming a shrine. However, the British attempts to erase him failed. In 1852, workmen were digging up the road to rebuild the bridge, and they found a skeleton. A relative was either among the workmen or was called to the scene. He identified the location as Roddy's burial place. The bones were collected and moved to the Dunedin Church of Ireland graveyard. He was finally given a dignified burial over 50 years after his death. If Roddy McCorley had just been another hanged rebel, we would not be discussing him today in this video. He would just be a footnote in the local history book. The song is the reason that his name is so well known today. The lyrics of Roddy McCorley were not written in 1798. They were written 100 years later by Anna Johnston, who wrote under the pen name Ethna Carberry in and around 1900 to 1902. At the turn of the 20th century, there was this massive cultural movement in Ireland to revive the language, the sports and history. This was known as the Gaelic Revival. The centenary of the 1798 rebellion in 1898 was a huge event. Carberry was a national poet. She wanted to create heroes for a new generation. She took the local folklore of Dunedin and polished it into high art. She stripped away the messy reality of the Archer gang and the robberies. She left only the pure golden-haired martyr. The music is a crucial part of the legend. It's played as a march. The tune itself is an old traditional air. What stands out most to me, the lyrics are tragic. A man is dying, but the music is triumphant.
And young Roddy McCorley goes to die on the bridge of Toon today.
This contrast creates a specific emotional effect. It makes the listener feel defiant rather than defeated. Interestingly as well, the melody of Roddy McCorley has a second life. In 1957, the IRA launched a border campaign. 2 volunteers, Sean South and Fergal O'Hanlon, were killed in an attack on a police barracks in Brookborough. Sean South's supporters wanted a song to commemorate him. They took the melody of Roddy McCorley and wrote new lyrics. This recycled the 1798 magic for the 1950s generation. For many people, the tune represents the continuity of the physical force tradition in Irish republicanism, from the pike of 1798 to the gun of 1957. The historical Roddy was a victim of his time. He was a young man whose family was destroyed by the state. He fought back the only way that he knew how, first with a pike in an army, and then with a gun in a gang. He was hunted, betrayed by his neighbours, and buried like a wild animal under a road. The mythical Roddy is the creation of the people who survived. They took his broken body and turned it into a symbol. They invented the Good Friday date to make him holy. They wrote a marching song to make him strong. The song proves that while the British can kill the man, they couldn't kill the story. In the end, Roddy McCorley is both the nefarious wretch of the 1800 newspaper and the hero of the North of the 1902 ballad. So thanks for watching. If you've made it this far, please hit that like button before you go, and subscribe as well if you don't want to miss any future videos. Also, let me know what you thought about this down in the comments. I would love to hear your thoughts. And if you're interested in getting yourself some Irish music themed bits and pieces, please check out the shop. You can kill 2 birds with 1 stone effectively. You can show your love for Irish music and support the channel at the same time. It really helps me out, and I can continue making videos like this. Also, I'd like to give a shout out to our channel members. Here's your names up on screen. Thanks again as always for your continued support. And I'd also like to give a warm welcome to Liz Carey 8550. Thanks a million for joining. I'm so happy to have you along for the journey. If you'd like to join them, just hit that join button down below or check out the links in the description for more more information. It's just another way that you can support the channel to keep these videos coming. As well as that, there is a hype feature down near the comments. If you could hype the video, I don't even know what it does, but maybe it'll help. I'd really appreciate it. The famine years came in the decades following the Roddy McCorley story. So if you'd like to get an idea of what Ireland sounded like around this time and how the famine affected music, check out this video here. It gives a unique look on the country at the time. As we know the name of the famine as the Great Hunger, the Famine, the Potato Famine, whatever have you, these years created something called the Great Silence. So check it out if you've got time, and I'm fairly sure you'll enjoy it. But anyway, yeah, that's it for me. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you all have a great day. Slán go fóill. Cheers.